Have you ever felt that you know you want something more, but you don't know what it is? Or worse, do you know what it is, but the success of YouTubers and TikTokers makes you think you're wrong? The trap of the social algorithm has pulled you away from your personal legend, and now you're shipwrecked in a sea of other people's success without knowing how to reach your own. Decades ago, Paulo Coelho wrote a parable that feels as if it were written for today: The Alchemist. And to me, this is a book that absolutely must be read. The Alchemist becomes a reflection of our own story. The story of the alchemist is told through the eyes of a young shepherd who has a dream about a treasure he must seek at the pyramids of Egypt. And this becomes the beginning of his search for his personal legend. Through the eyes of the boy, we discover that the journey to find our personal legend is not a straight line, but a path full of mirages. But what captured my attention the most, and what I would most like to focus on in this summary, are the different people the boy meets along the way. Because each of them represents the fears that pull us away from our own personal legend. The first representation is the baker. The second is the crystal merchant. The third is the Englishman. And the final representation is Fatima. When the boy meets the baker, he encounters someone who abandoned a dream. The dream of traveling. For the baker, the scale tipped toward money and status. The baker represents the illness that affects so many people. He is the one who prioritizes what society expects of him over what his soul is asking for. The baker will always look toward the horizon wondering, what if I had tried? How many times have we asked ourselves that same question? How many times have you felt the urge to follow your instinct? To leave behind who you are now in order to pursue who you have always wanted to become? And the moment you try to take a step, a great barrier stops you. What will other people say? Then comes the crystal merchant, who was one of my favorite characters of the book. He had the dream of traveling to Mecca, but he never did. Not because he couldn't, but because he was terrified of discovering what would happen afterward. He had turned his dream into something so great that living without achieving it became more comfortable than actually trying. Because as long as the dream remains a dream, there is always hope. But if you pursue it and it turns out not to be what you imagined, then what? How many of us live like this? Afraid of chasing that project, that dream, and somehow ending up failing? Afraid that we might fall apart along the way? That the restaurant we want to open might end up closing? That the house we want to invest in might become more of a headache than a blessing? Then comes the Englishman, the man obsessed with learning the secrets of alchemy. He represents those who seek answers only in theory. He reads books. He studies. He analyzes. He accumulates knowledge. But he does not understand that true wisdom is also found in living. This happens to us so often today. We consume podcasts, motivational videos, courses. We know so much and act so little. Many call it analysis paralysis. We analyze so much that we end up frozen, doing nothing, even though we know exactly what we should do. And still, we don't do it. We fail to realize that not only theory but experience itself is vital to our learning. And we cannot reach our personal legend without experience. And finally, we have Fatima, who represents love, and how it can pull us away from our personal legend. Should true love be an obstacle on your path? Many people abandon their journey for love. They believe that loving means renouncing themselves. They leave behind their dreams. They lose their essence. They abandon who they are in order to make that love fit. But Fatima does not represent a love that limits. She represents true love, the kind that pushes you forward. The kind that does not ask you to abandon your personal legend. Because real love does not take you away from who you are destined to become. It brings you closer. Sometimes we leave behind goals, projects, or dreams out of fear of losing someone. We change who we are. We lock away our essence in the deepest corners of our being, just to be loved. And then, somewhere in the distant future, you begin to feel resentment toward that love for having led you to imprison your soul. What once seemed sweet and everlasting turns bitter and unbearable. For true love, the right thing is not to stop growing. It is to grow alongside the person who truly loves you. After meeting all these different representations of what pulls you away from your personal legend, the book reaches its great revelation. After the boy crossed the desert, overcame fears, lost everything, and grew as a person along the journey, he discovers that the treasure he had been searching for, the very purpose of his personal legend, had been close to him from the very beginning. It was practically in the place where he started. And this is perhaps the most beautiful lesson of The Alchemist. Sometimes what we are searching for is not far away. It is within us, but we could not see it at the beginning. The journey, the learning, the setbacks, the suffering, the love, all of these are necessary for maturity. All of them are part of our personal legend, because it was never only about finding the treasure. It was about becoming the kind of person capable of recognizing it. Many times we think we are lost, that we are going in circles while others move forward, that we are stuck, drifting with no objective in sight. But maybe you are not lost. Maybe you are in the process. Maybe all those experiences, mistakes, disappointments, and changes are exactly what you need to evolve. Life does not always show you the answer at the beginning. First, it transforms you, and then it reveals the path. Keep trying. It's very hard to hear this phrase when it's already the 12th time you have kept trying, and you still don't see results. There are no changes, no differences, no progress. And at that point, it's not just about your body anymore, it's your mind. You can't even find another excuse to give yourself to keep going one more time instead of simply quitting. And you start to wonder, are you obsessing over something that has no real reason behind it? Does this goal even make sense? Those 10 pounds you promised yourself you would lose? Your GPA that needs to go up? You want to be leaner, but the weight takes time to drop. You want to be stronger, but muscle takes time to build. You want more money, but you're still in the same job, in the same position. Even after months of doing everything you can for a goal, you feel like it's never, truly never, going to happen. And in your darkest moments, you even think, why keep wasting time on this goal if it's probably a waste of time anyway? What if, at the end of the day, it was all just effort for nothing? Sometimes you turn your head and look at the person next to you. Because let's be honest, we're human. It's impossible not to compare yourself to someone. And you see that person who miraculously reached their goal weight. No surgery, of course, in record time. The coworker who puts in moderate effort goes on a vacation you worked hard to afford and comes back with a promotion. Maybe you're looking at everything from the wrong angle. It's hard when we examine everything under a magnifying glass and forget that the long term is what should truly be our focus. Because sometimes progress doesn't shout, it doesn't dazzle, it doesn't impress, but it moves forward, silently, firmly. Don't let frustration become your companion on the journey, the one whispering in your ear that it's better to stop or take a different path. Impatience will always be there, but you have to learn to control it. Because even if the goal looks far away, every single day you're getting closer. Recently, I read that life is very similar to compound interest. At first, everything feels harder because what you've accumulated is still small, and any effort seems insignificant. You work, you try, you repeat, and the results barely show. And then, over time, what once seemed small starts to multiply. What was almost invisible begins to take shape. And suddenly you realize you weren't moving slowly. You were accumulating. It's about staying consistent, working toward that goal, and proving that no setback will be enough to pull you away from what you want to achieve. Let me ask you something else. Have you ever liked someone, not just liked them, but felt like it was something more? You think about them all the time. You talk about them so much it almost becomes annoying. And yet, you do nothing about it. Because if you tell them how you feel, the worst could happen. They might reject you, and you definitely don't want that. Because there's nothing that feels more catastrophic, more apocalyptic, than being rejected. So you convince yourself, maybe it's better to leave things as they are. You feel good as friends. Everything is stable. So why risk it? Because if they reject you, then you might not just lose the chance, you might lose the friendship too. And that's when you decide it's safer to stay where you are. Until one day, someone else, a little braver than you, notices how special they are and takes the chance you didn't. And years later, that same person casually tells you they used to like you too, but they thought you were never interested. and nothing ever happened, because both of you were afraid of rejection. It's ironic. The fear of rejection kept you from acting, but the outcome was even worse. Loss, because in the end, you lost them anyway. And there's nothing you can do about it. Fear didn't let you act, and you chose the comfortable path instead. What's worse, over the years, you realize this didn't just happen once. It shows up again and again in different moments of your life. And each time the fear feels stronger, more overwhelming. So in a bitter kind of triumph, you keep avoiding rejection. But in the end, you realize this. You may have never been rejected, yet somehow you're even more afraid of it. This is something I personally went through in my teenage years, and I was able to overcome it. The interesting part is, I didn't even realize what I was doing at the time. But later, when I read Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers, I realized she perfectly described the exact method I had used. Would I recommend the book? Absolutely. One of its most important ideas is this. Feeling fear is normal. It's as natural as breathing. You're not the only person afraid of swimming in a deep, dark lake with something unknown lurking beneath. You're not the only one afraid of jumping onto a high box in a CrossFit class because you might get hurt. True story. You're not the only one with a strange or uncommon fear. We're human. Fear comes with the package. What's not okay is letting fear win in your mind and choosing not to act because of it. Because your mind is constantly trying to protect you. It senses potential pain, physical or emotional, and triggers fear to keep you safe. But the goal is not to eliminate fear. The goal is to choose it, to make it your ally, to become comfortable with it. That's one of the core ideas of the book. So what's the secret formula to getting rid of fear? There isn't one. Like everything in life, you have to train yourself. You have to build the ability to face fear. And that skill will stay with you for every future decision that scares you, because fear will always be there. One of the most important ideas in the book is this. If you avoid something that scares you, the fear grows. If you face it repeatedly, the fear shrinks. And this is exactly how, at 18 years old, I overcame my fear of asking people out. I made a rule for myself. From that moment on, if someone caught my attention at a bar or anywhere else, I had to go and talk to them. Did I get rejected? Many times. Did it work? Maybe 1 out of 20 times. But what did I gain? Confidence. The ability to start conversations with people I was genuinely interested in, without being paralyzed by fear. I had heard no so many times I couldn't even count them. At first, each rejection felt like a stab to my ego, but over time, it felt more like a tap on the shoulder. Because I realized something powerful. After rejection, nothing terrible actually happens. Life goes on. The next day, I'd wake up, go back to my routine, maybe with a bruised ego, but within a couple of days, I was completely fine again. This book helps you understand that fear is normal, and that you must choose to face it, not hide from it, not avoid it. Because when you repeatedly expose yourself to what scares you, it becomes familiar. And when it becomes familiar, it loses its power. Another key idea: when you feel fear, act, don't overthink. Because the moment you start imagining all the worst-case scenarios, your willingness to act shrinks. But if you act quickly, you train yourself to face fear. You don't want to jump that box? Do it before your mind creates a movie of everything that could go wrong. And this connects to something deeper: confidence. Why don't you jump? Because you think you'll fail. But that belief is the same as telling yourself, I'm not capable. Your lack of faith in yourself feeds the fear and pushes you away from challenges. But above all, remember this: fear is part of the process. Facing it is what makes you grow. Avoiding it is what keeps you stuck. So don't feel discouraged when you feel fear. See it as a signal that you're about to step into something bigger. And over time, you'll start to notice something. It's not that the battles become easier, it's that you become more willing to fight them. You hesitate less, you act faster, you choose courage more often. Because remember, the difference is not who feels no fear, it's who acts despite feeling it.